Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we'd request that House Bill 1029's amendments be considered separately.
The House Bill amendments for 1029 will be considered separately. Are there any other ones that members want off of the 6th order? Seeing none, the other bills on the 6th order are placed on the 11th order of business on the following day's calendar. Representative Mock, are you prepared to address the amendments on House Bill 1029 at this time?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, and perhaps many of you have received emails from your housing authorities and your communities, but earlier today I received a message from the Grand Forks Housing Authority, and I know that Fargo and some of the other communities that are impacted with rapid growth and housing shortages, they have concerns with the amendment to reduce the appropriation from $50 million to $20 million in the Housing Incentive Fund. From what I'm looking at under the current Housing Incentive Fund, 739 new housing units are being developed in 16 communities across North Dakota. With the proposed $50 million in the Housing Incentive Fund, that brings a proposed 2,500 new homes or housing units that could be created and spring $350 million in housing activity in our communities in the next 2 to 3 years. So while, Mr. Speaker, we certainly are happy to see a $20 million appropriation in the Housing Incentive Fund and recognize the impacts that will have across our state, the need is now. And we certainly recognize that the $50 million would be a substantial benefit to all communities across North Dakota. So, Mr. Speaker, members of the Assembly, I certainly hope that we can reject the amendments in House Bill 1029 and return the appropriation to $50 million. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Mock, I assume that is a motion. Is that a motion to reject the amendment on the 6th order?
Mr. Speaker, if that is what is needed, then yes. My understanding is that we would have to approve the amendments, okay. So it's just to reject the amendments.
You're correct. Representative Froseth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly. I am the bill carrier on House Bill 1029. And I'd like to briefly explain the committee's action on the amendment. The original bill extends the Homestead Incentive Fund from $15 million to $20 million, and it also included a $30 million addition that was in the governor's budget. The committee removed that $30 million and approved the amendment. We also added the emergency clause to the amendment and approved the bill as an increase from $15 million to $20 million for that housing incentive fund. Representative Mock is right in his numbers on the success of the fund to date, but it was also noted that the last, I believe it was the last $6 million of that $15 million fund wasn't spoken for until just in recent weeks, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. So that fund did have quite a little success in some of the rural communities, but it took quite a while for the state or to grant those $15 million of income tax exemption. So we thought it was better to go with the $20 million fund for the next biennium and see what measure the success at the end of that biennium. Thank you.
Representative Strindon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly. We all know what dire housing problems we have in North Dakota. This is a bill that would help us across the state, me and Grand Forks out in Williston. I don't want to go home to my constituents and tell them that we had a bill like this that had $50 million and we struck it down to 20. I want to draw your attention to the sunset. The sunset is in 2015. So if we pass $50 million now for these really serious infrastructure housing problems that we're having, in 2015, if we don't have those problems anymore, we can knock it back down. So I really urge you all to vote against the amendment. Thank you.
Representative Belter.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the Assembly. I guess it was a Policies Committee's recommendation that the 1/3 increase by going from 15 to 20 million is sufficient. As Representative Froseth pointed out, they had difficulty in getting the 15 million passed out last time. And the other thing is that the extra 30 million, which we removed, is still in the Industrial Commission budget, which goes before appropriations. But the Policy Committee felt that if we increase it to 20 million, that should be sufficient. And I would ask that the House support committee recommendation.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Glassheim.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the House, I may be wrong, but it's my understanding that these are tax credits, and so if there's a problem in getting them used, they just won't be used. It only permits the expansion to 50 million if, in fact, there are people out there to make use of it and invest the money. So the argument that there was a problem getting it used is, I don't think it makes any difference, because it just gives authority if there are people putting money in to build housing and get these tax credits. So I would urge a no vote on the amendment.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, the House has before it for
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you could, if you would just,
excuse me, Representative
if you would just explain to the Assembly, there's a number of new people in here, what it means. We have not yet voted on an amendment, so to make sure that they understand the proper voting procedure for this and what it does, the yes or the no.
Representative Carlson, I would like to do that. This is kind of one of these wing it and learn as you go again, but the House has the option of rejecting the amendment. The House has the option of asking for a recorded roll call vote on the measure. If the amendment is rejected, the House will take up the original bill on tomorrow's calendar. Representative Carlson, oh wait, we're getting, Representative Carlson, I may get back to you in a moment. Representative Froseth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would request a roll call vote, and I would urge a yes vote on the amendment.
All those in favor of roll call vote, please stand. It takes 17 members. A roll call vote on the amendment to 1029 will be taken. A yes vote will pass the amendment. A no vote will, of course, reject the amendment. Is there any further discussion? House has before it for final consideration the amendments for House Bill 1029. The clerk will open the key and you may record your vote. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? The key will be closed and the clerk will take the roll. The final vote shows the amendment with 60 yea, 30 nay, 4 absent, and not voting. The amendment has been passed.